Leong, how are you?
Hi, good. Yeah,
All
thank you,
right,
Walid,
hi. No, thank
for
you.
having me.
Thank you for agreeing to come on. So the target is about 40 minutes.
Okay,
And I'll try to take some questions from the audience as well as we go on. So hopefully this is
okay,
a... And feel free
okay,
to say anything at any point in time. Okay, feel free to
okay,
interrupt me or
okay.
anything.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So I already... so maybe I think by now, you would be a household name to most people. At least those who are watching definitely know who you are.
Yeah, yeah. Thank
So
you very
you
much.
probably wouldn't need an introduction, but basically an NCMP from West Coast, from PSP, contested in West Coast, a former PSC scholar, a vast experience in the banking financial sector, not an experienced politician, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing. Maybe it is, maybe it's not, but I don't think it is. So that's about Mr. Leong. So my first question is, and we have to start with this because this has been the
And
talk of town, right?
and before
Your Yeah,
before
sure,
you start, I
sure,
say
sure.
just in case I forget anything, my Japanese girlfriend and the mascot Ortica at the back will remind me. Okay, hopefully.
Okay, so you have a good luck charm as well. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So today, I will start off with this question, right? The question that
Okay.
it has, here, what you said in Parliament has made waves to the point that a couple of ministers had to respond to you.
Yeah.
And that is really the issue about the foreign talent, right? And you
Yes.
lamented the lack of homegrown talent in key institutions, right, in the financial
Mm.
sector.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
and and my first question is this, and I understand what you said probably resonate with many Singaporeans, and I think
Yes.
at least from my conversations, I think most people
Yeah.
agree with the essence of what you said.
I
My
hope
my
so. Yeah.
my my I guess my personal discomfort is where is the line between fighting for the rights of Singaporeans and being xenophobic? And one can say that in many ways, right? The people, the new citizens, they are more Singaporean than you and I, right? Because for us, being Singaporean is an accident of birth. But for them, they chose to be Singaporean. And we didn't make that choice. So in many ways, they are more Singaporean than us. So why did you say whatever you say? And maybe you can elaborate on what exactly you meant.
Okay. I think first of all, I don't agree that they are more Singaporean than us
Oh,
because
you don't think
we are
so?
brought up by Singaporeans, right?
Okay. Yes.
Now we are not only born as Singaporeans by accident, but we are brought up by Singaporeans, and we are here for generations, at least two generations. And a lot of the Singaporeans are more than two generations, many generations. So we actually developed this place, of course, together with the leadership of, in the past was the colonial government and then the PAP government, which did very well, But so we are actually, I don't agree that we are less Singaporean than the naturalized citizens, okay? But as I've said before, as long as you become a citizen, we will not discriminate against naturalized citizens or, when you're a citizen, you're a citizen. There shouldn't be multiple classes or two classes of citizen, okay? If you're Singaporean, you're Singaporean, okay? So, but what we sort of argue with the government about is that when all these naturalized citizens have become our citizens, we'll take care of them, okay? But at the same time, so they become our citizens, and this is the whole citizen pool that we are talking about, and we become, but we want to remind the government that in the future, when you bring in future new citizens, or you bring in PRs or foreigners to compete, against our people, meaning the citizens, think twice whether you have put in all the safeguards, whether you have actually monitored the ground properly to ensure that we are not, this is the line that I'm drawing, to ensure that our Singaporeans, both homegrown and naturalized, are not discriminated against. Okay,
Okay.
there's ample evidence now from anecdotal and also from statistics, although we are still involved in a statistical kind of argument with the government, okay, whether the foreigners and the immigrants by and large have displaced many of our Singaporeans or not. Okay, the governments have put up their statistics. And in fact, there are more statistics being put up in recent days and weeks. I think that's a very welcome move and signs of good things to come. But nevertheless, all the statistics that have been given to us so far is still not very convincing. That to assure us there's no discrimination, there's no displacements of our Singaporeans from the workplace. In fact, even the Minister of Manpower herself admitted that there is probably some problem with the PMETs who are about 40 to 50 years old. Okay, and that is really a very a big warning sign, because the 40 years old and the 50 years old Singaporeans, they are the breadwinner of the family, right? So, and if the breadwinner becomes unemployed, that's really a very serious matter. Of course, we also have to look after our young workers as well, those who newly graduate from the university and all that. But nevertheless, when these people, we may have given, we may have jobs for the young graduates, but at the same time, if our 40 years old and 50 years old PMETs are being displaced, that is a serious problem that we have looked at. Okay, so at the moment, I think we are still arguing with the government as to how serious the problem is. But I think until all the facts are there, we wouldn't be too sort of dogmatic about anything. We'll accept what the governments have shown us, and we continue to voice that out in Parliament. Yeah.
Okay. And I think that's fair. I mean, it is the job of the opposition to argue with the government sometimes, at least, right?
Yes. Yes.
Right. So
not
I
sometimes,
get that.
all the time you must question.
Yes, question all the time, but argue not all the time, right?
Yeah,
no, most of the times, yeah. Sometimes you have to agree as well. So,
yes, I agree.
So I get that, and I think that's sound. Whatever you just said is sound. But if I could push you a little, are you
Please.
not worried that this may eventually lead to us Singaporeans, quote unquote, becoming more and more xenophobic? Do you worry that such rhetoric can lead to that kind of situation?
I don't think so, because right now I think that the imbalance is too big in favor of the foreigners. Okay, so we have to. It's like the pendulum, you move from the left to the right. So I think now we are too much on one side. So we're just pushing it back a little bit more. Okay, little bit. And Singaporeans, we are very open. Because we are an immigrant society. We are very open about accepting foreigners. I don't think Singaporeans will become very xenophobic about it. I think what Singaporeans are, I think many are crying out for help now is that please rebalance the situation. I think what the opposition, especially PSP, wants to do is just to rebalance the situation and work together with the government to actually make concrete improvements to the job situation in Singapore. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that, Mr. Leong. So basically, if I could paraphrase you, you are not saying that new citizens are
we don't close doors.
Right?
We don't close
right.
doors.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that. And I think at the very least, it's helpful to have that discussion in Parliament. And thanks for raising whatever you did. So on to your party, right? PSP, right? What exactly does it stand for? Is it fair to say that the PSP is a Tan Cheng Bock party? And based on my own conversations with people, right, they are asking who are the other people who are contesting in West Coast, right? They don't know. They only know Dr. Tan, and that's about it. That's all they know about the PSP.
Yeah.
So is it fair to say that the PSP is a Tan Cheng Bock party?
Okay, I think any organization or party, for this matter, the political party, when it was started, it must be started by a strong leader, right? Because if not, the party or the organization cannot take root, okay, and cannot develop. It must be by a strong leader, right? And we are very lucky to have Dr. Tan, because Dr. Tan really, whether it's the heart or whether it's a track record, he's a very outstanding person, okay, to start the party and to bring the party up to this stage. Okay, so in any organization or party, initially there will be a strong leader. So as a result, people will identify the party with the strong leader in the first stage of the development. But I think after we have fought this campaign and the other leaders started to come out and do various things to develop the party further, I think slowly we will get recognition by the public that PSP is just not only Dr. Tan. Of course, Dr. Tan continue to be very important, continue to be the soul and the pillar of the party. Okay, but the next generation of leadership is already in place. Yeah.
Right, and I presume that includes yourself, right?
Yeah, I think so. I'm one of them.
Right. So I think there are a couple of interesting points from that. One is Dr. Tan remains the heart and soul of the party. You said.
Yeah.
Until when? Is it until the next presidential election or?
I think you're trying to fish something out.
So until when?
I don't have an answer to that. Okay, but
Okay,
I
yeah,
think
fine.
in terms of the timeline, how the new leadership will take shape and take root, probably will be in the next 2 years. Right now,
Okay.
Dr. Tan is working with the next generation leadership and also the next generation leadership to actually ensure that the leadership will be beefed up over the next 1 to 2 years. And then after the 1 to 2 years, we will identify a new slate of candidates. Of course, the slate of candidates we have in the campaign is the core that we have, but we will further strengthen the slate, going forward. Yeah.
Okay. So is it fair to say that to move away from the image of PSP being Tan Cheng Bock Party, it solely or largely depends on how you and Hazel perform in Parliament?
I don't think that is the only thing. I think Parliament and our communication strategy is one very important part. But at the same time, the ground operations, and the core leadership, the organizational leadership within the party is equally important. Okay, and that's led by my colleague, the Assistant Secretary General Francis Yuen, a very
Right.
Respectable figure. I call him Tai Ko, the big brother. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for it. Sorry, I just wanted to go back to the earlier question because I wanted to address one of the comments and this is the kind of rhetoric that I was worried about. One of them said, should we prevent new citizens from voting in the first 2 elections?
No.
Exactly right. Exactly. So this is what I'm worried about. Even though the intent comes from a good place, right? As in the intent of saying that we must have Singaporeans first. I just worry that we slip into the xenophobic
No,
route.
definitely cannot. You see, we must uphold our pledge.
Right.
Our national pledge. The moment they are citizens, irrespective of race, language, or religion, we are all one big family. That is something that we must not depart from.
Right. I completely agree, and I think it doesn't help anyone if that is how we treat new citizens, right?
No, definitely not.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so the next question is why do we need another opposition party? Don't we have enough? We have every election we'll see so many parties. Why have another one, PSP? Why didn't Dr. Tan just join Workers' Party or join the SDP, and then we'll have 3 main parties, right? WP, SDP, and PAP. Why dilute the opposition vote, and why do we need to add to the messiness?
Okay, actually, in Singapore, our country, for the longest time, there was only one dominant party, right? So actually, our democratic development or the democratic development process have actually barely started, right? And there are many talents, among Singaporeans. That's one thing that we want to challenge the government also, and say that you don't have monopoly of talents. There are more talents outside government than inside government. Okay.
All right.
So the problem in the past, or one of the hesitation, is that many of these talents didn't step forward. Okay. to take part in this political process. Okay, so one of the objective of PSP is actually, Dr. Tan said, is to create a movement. Okay, so that more talented Singaporeans can step forward. And if more talented Singaporeans step forward, then maybe Francis Yun and myself can retire after the next election. Okay, yeah, right. So because more
Why?
talented Singaporeans will be here,
Why?
you know, and there are a lot of talented Singaporeans. Okay, so because of that, I think it's probably a bit too much to say that, oh, why we need another opposition party, you know, and things like that. I think we can afford to have many more opposition parties, but I think our fellow voters will be very discerning, okay, and from the parties they will be able to sort of differentiate the parties they want to support and the parties they don't want to support. So let it be a process, a competitive process, even for the opposition parties or the alternative parties. There ought to be a process. We are not just competing against PAP, but we should be also, while we are very friendly, as you can see that in the last few elections, there are very few three-corner fights, right?
Right. Right.
Okay, so actually, it's not a wasting of. There's no wastage of
Agreed.
votes at all, you know, because
Agreed.
we are friendly with one another. At the same time, we are competing with one another because sometimes we have different values, we have different approaches, we have different development strategy we want to introduce into the country. So we should allow 100 flowers to blossom. Okay, so it is too early to say, oh, why we need another opposition party. I think the democratic process and the voting process, the election process will take care of itself, will take care of this. Okay, eventually we will settle into a few parties. And I don't think it's just WP and ourselves also. I think SDP and some other parties, you know, they should continue to present themselves to the voters. And by their presence, I think we can learn from them as well. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think
Yeah.
it's just not one party. Yeah.
I agree. That
Yeah.
wasn't my question. That was an audience question, and I completely agree with
Oh,
your
okay,
answer
yeah.
as well.
Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, it's good for the opposition as well if there are many parties, so it keeps
Yes.
each party on their toes as well. So I
Yes.
don't
Yes.
think, and anyway, voters will sort the situation out, right?
Yeah.
They will
And
choose
also,
the
you do not know how our political and democratic process will evolve.
right.
Okay, we can't take it for granted that because of the Westminster system,
Right.
definitely there will be two strongest party and they fight
Exactly.
against one another. This may not be the formula for our country. We never know.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe
Right.
in the future we have a few parties that's always talking to one another, and we always have a national unity government.
Right.
You know what I mean? That may be
Right.
good
Right.
for Singapore. We never know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, all those I think are not beyond the realm of possibility. Definitely, we should explore that. So there's a question about what PSP is doing to attract young voters, but we'll address that later on because there's another
Okay.
question related to that.
Okay.
So the fourth one, the fourth major topic I wanted to talk to you about is the NCMP scheme, because you are obviously intimately involved in this, and I generally think the NCMP scheme is good for opposition parties. It's more beneficial than it is harmful. But I guess the question I want to ask you is, one of the most famous speeches Dr. Tan gave as PAP MP, if not the most famous, is the one where he opposed the NCMP and NMP schemes, right? And and when he was talking about it, I think Mr. Lau and Mr. Chiam were applauding his speech. If I remember correctly. So if you are opposed to the scheme in principle, why does your party take up the position?
Okay, I didn't check the Hansard in the past, but according to what Dr. Tan told us, he didn't oppose the NCMP scheme at the time when he was an MP. He was against the NMP scheme.
Right.
Okay, he was against the NMP scheme. So, but of course, in recent days, even during the campaign, Dr. Tan and myself, and even to a certain extent, Hazel, we have reservations or we are against the scheme. Okay.
Right.
Okay, that is a political principle, and I'll talk about the political principle later on. But we also agree with you. Like when we take up the NCMP post, it was actually Dr. Tan who actually supported it. Okay, and so we agree that the NCMP scheme is a good thing for the opposition party to at least have to at least participate in the parliament. Okay, it is better to participate in the parliament than to be outside the parliament. Okay, because then you gain experience, then you know how difficult policy making is. You can understand the difficulties that the government is facing, and then you can also understand some of the things maybe the government have not considered, you know. So that experience is very important. So definitely it is a good opportunity. Okay. But having said that, in terms of political principle, we are also very concerned by the fact that the government had marketed the NCMP scheme as a substitute for the MPs. Okay, because they are telling the electorate that you don't need an opposition, you don't need to vote in a full MP because we have this NCMP for you.
Right.
That is what we are not comfortable with, or we are against. Why? Because of the following points. One, the NCMP scheme still lacks legitimacy because it has always been marketed as a best loser thing. Okay, so if the government really wants to very serious about having the minority voices, that means, you see, this time around, close to 40% of the Singaporeans are against the government, right? So you say, okay, I want to let this 40% to be represented in Parliament. Okay, then you take NCMP to be a more legitimate sort of MP, you know, and don't call it the best loser.
Right.
Because it's because that legitimacy is important. Okay, for the NCMP to do a better job in Parliament. Okay, that's one point.
Right.
Second point is that although the NCMP do not do town council and all that, the current resources that the government give to the NCMP is so little that, especially now, the NCMP has got the full voting rights as an ordinary MP, right? So we have to go through all the information and all the materials in order to be able to make a decision to vote yes or no, right?
Right.
And so we have to do all that. But the government is only paying us 15% what the full MP is being paid.
Right.
So the full MP is being paid, I think, is 17,000. We are being paid 2,000. Okay, so for some of us who are financially independent, then it's okay. But for other MPs who are younger or who have not, who do not necessarily have all the financial resources, then you put him in a very difficult position, whether to discharge his duties, be a full-time MP, or he has to compromise the MP position because he has to survive for his family and all that, right? So they just didn't give enough resources to the NCMP. Plus, the full MP has got a legislative assistant paid for by the government or by the parliament. But the NCMP is also not entitled to the LA or the legislative assistant. But we have to read through all the bills, we read through all the Auditor General report, government accountant report, in order to be able to say something correctly or to say something substantial in Parliament, right? So whether in terms of legitimacy or whether the amount of resources the government is giving to the NCMP does not justify the government saying that NCMP is the same as full MP.
Right.
Okay, but we appreciate the government giving us an opportunity to learn in Parliament as an NCMP. That we thank the government for. Yeah.
Right.
But if the government try to use it like that in the way of convincing the electorate that they don't need a full MP, then I think that is something that we will be against. Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah. So thanks for that. And you are right. The speech in question that I referenced earlier was about the NMP, actually, not the NCMP.
Yes.
Skip, right?
Yes.
But the principle is the same, right? It's essentially undemocratic, right?
Well, I think depending on how you define it, the nominated MP scheme they do not vote like like us. I
Right.
think NCMP
Right.
has, yeah. So
Yeah,
the
has more
NCMP,
rights, yeah.
yeah, we have more rights to vote and all that. So
Right.
in a way, we are closer to a full MP lah. But I think,
Right.
but of course, I mean, even we have, I kind of agree with Dr. Tan with regards to his opinion about the NMP,
Oh.
because by right, if the government sort of loosen things a little bit more, the opinion expressed by the NMP could be actually expressed outside Parliament. You don't need a group of people inside Parliament just to express opinion, right?
Right.
Outside, actually, in a more normal democratic system, you would have the press, the media, to express opinion, right? You will have the academics, like yourself, to express opinion. You will have the lawyers who express the opinion, and you have the civil society, right? So there are many sort of pillars of democratic in the democratic system, but unfortunately, all these pillars in Singapore are not quite working, lah. Okay, whether they're self-censored or there are laws that are preventing them from be more outspoken and all that. You know, so if you have all that in a more normal development, you actually don't need a group of people, essentially from the academics, from the civil society, to be in Parliament and then make the speeches, right? Yeah. So I think I agree with Dr. Tan. Yeah.
Okay. So thanks for that. I think you are right on the fact that we need non-political actors to actually articulate their opinions, and there must be space given for them, right? But surely, if you articulate an opinion in Parliament, it's more impactful than me saying something on my Facebook, right? So surely wouldn't there be a case for the NMP then in the system that we have now?
Okay, I think under our current system, okay, given that the what I call that the space outside the Parliament is not that active and vibrant. Okay, of course, we draw comfort from the fact that the social media space is becoming very active nowadays, lah. Okay, so but given that the overall sort of the public forum, the public discourse is not very vibrant and active, I also do not completely write off the NMPs. I think the NMPs have a role to play in Parliament as well. Yeah.
Right. So in an ideal world, they shouldn't exist, but because of the system we have, we might as well have them.
Yeah. So in an ideal world, the NCMP shouldn't exist.
Right.
But we can have proportional representation and all that, right? Yeah.
Right. So I don't know about proportional representation, but I agree with you. In an ideal world, the NCMP and NMP schemes should not exist. But I also think that it's okay to oppose those schemes in principle, but it is what it is, and you take up the schemes because that's dealing with the reality of the political situation.
Yeah, because that's the reality, and that's the rules that the
that's the rules.
The dominant party set, right?
Has set,
and since most of our fellow Singaporean brothers and sisters have given the overwhelming mandate to the PAP, so they set the rules, and of course we have to follow the rules and urge our democratic process to develop.
Right. I agree. I think that's very sensible.
Yeah.
So the next question is already half an hour, by the way. That's very fast. Okay. So my next question is...
I asked whether my Japanese girlfriend got any opinion or not. Do you have any opinion?
Well, if she said yes, I would be a bit scared.
She just told me in Japanese, I think you asked Walid. Okay.
Right. So opposition coalition. Is that possible? Is that on the table or on the cards? And I'm not talking about the smaller parties, not about PSP and Red Dot United and the other parties, because I think that's very feasible, right? Yeah. But I'm talking about PSP, SDP, WP. Would that be possible?
Okay, I think coalition would be a bit too early to speak about. But then definitely all three parties are very friendly with one another. And then I wouldn't hesitate to say that these three parties are first of all the parties to look for, because
Right.
all of us have proven ourselves in the electoral process already.
Right.
Right. SDP at one point they have 4 MPs
Right.
in Parliament. So now we don't have an MP
Three.
yet in Parliament, but we have 2 NCMPs. Okay. And the last election we have garnered 41% of the vote. Okay, in the average, so we are above the average of 38% together with
Right.
WP. Of course, WP did way better than us. Okay,
Right.
so even SDP is also close to 38%.
Right.
So I think these three parties, I think we have proven ourselves in the electoral process. So I think we will continue to be very friendly with one another. But as I say, going forward, we never know how the democratic process in Singapore will evolve. Okay, so we just maintain that dialogue, and understanding each other values and all that. And whenever we can cooperate, we'll cooperate.
Right. So it's more of a loose cooperation rather than a formal coalition.
Yeah. But when the need arises, I think that there should be any obstacle to having some formal arrangement as well. But the need is not there yet. Yeah.
Right. So so it's basically when the stars align, essentially when there's a there's a need for it, and perhaps when there's a possibility of actually winning, right?
Oh yeah.
Right. By the way, just now you mentioned 4 SDP MPs. I think it was 3 plus Mr. Lau, right, in 1991, probably.
SDP. No, SDP
right?
was Mr. Chiam, and
right,
then
Mr. Chiam, Ling Hao Dun, and Cho Chai Cheng.
Right.
Right.
Is it 3 only?
I think it's 3, and Mr. Lau is from 1991, probably.
That was Mr. Lau. So SDP was only 3. Yeah, correct.
Right.
Okay.
So they have proven themselves, but also, and this pertains to one of the questions. SDP is quite clear in its ideology, right? So there's a space there's for it in the political scene because it's very left, by Singapore standards, of course.
Yeah.
So where would you put PSP? Are you center right, center left, or does this left right spectrum doesn't even make sense in the context of Singapore? What do you think?
Yeah, I think the context of Singapore is all about pragmatism. And I think if anything, our policy should be very close to the center. Very close to the center. And one thing that we want to stress about PSP is that we are not just aiming to be an alternative voice. We are aiming to provide an alternative model. Okay, so we are not completely there yet, but we definitely have the sort of the initial model structure in place already. So we will, as compared to the present government, we will be able to present an alternative model as well to our fellow Singaporeans in due course.
Meaning what? Alternative model
meaning we have a different economic model, a different social economic model.
Right.
I mean, like a social economic model. Of course, the day SM Tama mentioned that no one have a monopoly of compassion.
Right.
But we say, our compassion seems to have a little bit more than your compassion, maybe. So in that sense, our social economic model is slightly different,
Is that a claim you would make, that PSP has more compassion than the ruling party, for instance?
I think PSP would like to claim that, yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Although what they would say, but of course, I mean, sometimes this sort of thing is a bit semantic in the sense that the government can also say that they also have equal amount of compassion, but they express that compassion in different policies. Okay.
Right.
So I don't think we should get into an argument of that.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But what we are saying is that your current policies, according to our yardstick or our benchmark, is not as compassionate as you think, we think that our policies are more compassionate. Okay, but I mean, there's something.
And I think by default, all parties should think their policies are more compassionate, right? If not, why do you have that policy if you don't think that's the most compassionate policy? So
Yes,
in a
yes.
sense, I do expect all parties to disagree with others on the level of compassion of each party. And I think that's a healthy discussion to be had.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
I
so
think, yeah,
yeah,
agree.
sorry,
Yeah.
yeah. So the question, and I guess because the audience mostly is from a younger generation, right? And they really want to know. There are many things that they are very interested in, but they don't see being put forward by PSP so far. I mean, it's very early days, and of
Yeah,
course,
yeah.
election manifestos are election manifestos. They evolve, and PSP also is a very young party. So issues like climate change or racial justice or even LGBT issues that some of the audience members have articulated. So, are these on the agenda for the PSP, or is the PSP going to react to the PAP, especially in terms of bread and butter economic issues?
Okay, I think when we started the party, and it was 1 year ago, right? About 1 year ago, uh, what what most of us came together to join PSP is basically about the deepening social economic problems in Singapore. Okay, so naturally, as a result of that, the leadership of the party had concentrated more on more on economic issues. Okay, and rightfully so, because those are very important issues, and now we also confronted with COVID, which magnify and deepen the issue. Okay, so but when we get together, of course, all of us are very open-minded, and we are all for democracies and all that, and for diversity, and inclusiveness and all those things. Okay, but nevertheless, if the some of these values, if it's a bit too liberal, then what our party stance would be is that we will observe what the society wants, and we will basically toe the line of society. We wouldn't go beyond and be more progressive than what our society wants and all that.
Shouldn't
Okay.
shouldn't parties lead as well and do the right thing rather than follow public opinion all the
Okay.
time?
For
Shouldn't that?
certain
Yeah.
for certain areas, we will not lead. Okay, but for climate change, for example, we will have a different way of doing things. We'll not be immediately talking about, oh, we are going to spend $100 billion on building seawalls and all those things. Okay, we think that the way to approach environment, climate change, and sustainability is actually to start with the individual. That means if we better our society in general, we put in more investment in our social capital, in our social infrastructures, and then slowly nudge our fellow Singaporeans towards a more environmental friendly lifestyle. That is something that we thought that we want to concentrate on. Okay, and in the process of doing that, we could also use our national reserve, our resources more gainfully, in the sense that the resources will go into the people, into our Singaporeans. Okay, so one of the things, like for example, we have in mind is that we should first tackle the use of plastic. Okay, we should tackle the public cleanliness, especially now we have COVID, all that, right? We should invest a little bit more about cleanliness in our public places, especially Singaporeans all like to eat. So we should spend more money invest into more cleaner and more cleaner eating places, like the hawker center, like the coffee shops. I know that once the NEA had sponsored doing up all the public toilets again, but I think we can do a lot more. Okay,
Right.
then we should go into, I think, employing some of our unemployed Singaporeans, especially the older ones, into more on the social projects. Like for example, I think we should go into garbage classification already.
Okay.
Okay, garbage,
Right.
yeah, and so we will require more manpower, right?
Right.
To kind of jaga, and make sure
Right.
people classify their garbage, and all that. And we should look at food wastage, okay? And then we should look at water wastage, So all these I think we should start with all that, and that is the thing that, and when we start with all that, we create some employment, we create awareness, and we change our lifestyle to a bit more, when it becomes environmental friendly, it is also, in a way, I would say it's also a bit related to more conscious of our environment, means more conscious of our social behavior.
Right.
Okay, then that will lead to a better society. So I think we are actually more interested in this area. And in fact, for the big spending on climate change and all that, we would like to question the government before we allow them to spend. Yeah.
Sure, right. I think that's fair. So just two follow-up questions on it. One is what other people have asked. What does the cleanliness of hawker centers have to do with climate change? Maybe you can expand on that. And second is my own question. It seems like you are putting the responsibility a lot on the consumers. What about the big companies, the big oil companies, and actually the people, the corporations which are most responsible for the environmental regulation, right?
Okay.
So why,
Okay.
what do we do about that?
Yeah, on the individual is one aspect. Okay, I'll explain later. Okay,
Sure,
but
sure.
in terms of the corporations, we also have our policy have also stated that we like to push for electric vehicle. We don't know why the electric vehicle in Singapore is so slow in development. Actually, we have the perfect sort of governing structure to allow us to put in place the electric vehicle infrastructure very fast. Okay. So I think government now is doing a bit more, but I think in Parliament we will also look forward to actually push harder on that front. Okay, so by doing that, then actually it's pushing the responsibility a bit more onto the corporations. Okay, so they have to change the way they operate, use the electric vehicle and all that. Okay, so but coming back to the part about hawker center cleanliness and all that. You see, all these affect environment because you see, it starts with the individual. What sustainability means actually it starts with yourself. Whatever we do, whatever kind of waste that we generated ourselves, we should actually take care of it ourselves. Whether it's a garbage we generated or whatever. Because by doing that, then we don't need someone to come in and then use large amount of detergent and all that and clean up the big mess. If everyone take care of a small mess, then we will be able to save a lot on the, on all the maybe detergent or all the other work that need to be done to clean up the mess. And then whenever you do those work, you will need large amount of energy, right?
Right.
And that comes back to environment again.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. So as we can see, once we talked about climate change, there's a slew of questions. But I think you have addressed the major points. So my final question to you is, before I need your advice on something. So my final question to you is, there are many young voters who are going to watch this, right? Well, let's face it, most of those who are going to watch this are the young voters, whether live or later. So what's your message to them? Why should they support you and your party?
Okay, I say already, PSP is a new party. In the first stage of development, we may not have a lot of young members, but after the campaign, many young members have come forward. Okay, so our young member, our youth wing is growing very fast. So when you come in, you can expect to have an exciting experience with our party and participate in our party's vision, wanting not just to become an alternative voice. That means not just an opposition party. We want to offer an alternative model to our country. And one day we are part of government or the government. So it's a long haul, and you can be assured that it will be a very exciting journey in a big family. The values as set up by Dr. Tan. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So the advice I wanted to ask you for is, it's not about running for elections. So
you're welcome. You're welcome the next round.
So do you have any suggestions? Three politicians that I should ask or approach to have on this show. People have already said SM Taman and Pritam Singh, leader of the opposition, Pritam Singh. So, any other suggestions that you would like me to talk to or have a chat with?
I think most of them are worth talking to.
Oh, that's
Have you
very politically correct.
Yeah, have you spoken to Paul Tambaya yet?
Oh, okay. So I have asked him. Yeah, he's non-committal, but I will pester him. Okay, so Paul Tambaya. Yeah.
I think you
Anybody
speak
else?
with Paul Tambaya.
Anybody from PAP that you like to see me talk to?
PAP. I must say that I enjoy very much interacting with them during the first session of the Parliament. Actually, all of them, you should talk to them. You know, I think in recent days, especially I think have come up with some very unique ideas. Is like Ang Wei Neng.
Oh, right.
Ang Wei Neng.
Yeah.
I think you should
Yeah.
talk to Ang Wei Neng.
Dr. Ang, yeah.
Doctor. And yeah. Maybe you should speak to Nadia also. Nadia sat next to me in the Parliament, so.
Nadia Samdin. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Ang Wei Neng is not. I don't know why I call him doctor. He's not, right?
Yeah, he's not.
Yeah, he's not. Yeah. So, so Nadia Samdin. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
I will
Paul,
approach
Nadia,
them.
and yeah.
Yeah. So I will approach them and tell them that you recommended them. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
I
so thank
sampled
you
them.
so much. Thank you so much for your time, and this was a very enjoyable conversation. And I think,
my pleasure. Thank you.
I think people know more about you and about PSP now. Okay.
Yeah. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Okay,
Thank
I'll be
you.
uploading.